What's up guys, Gary here for VFX. Welcome to 2023 and to a new tutorial, and I'm going to make them a bit more regular this year. Towards the end of last year there was lots of stuff going on. It was actually really ill for a couple of weeks as well, which really didn't help. Partly over Christmas, which really didn't help. I wasn't happy about it at all. But you can't have everything. But what we can have is new tutorials. And they're back, going to be on this channel every week, he says, hopefully. But let's start as we mean to go on. And it is currently, I'm recording this on the 1st of January. And if that isn't setting the tone early on, I don't know what is. But today we're going to be talking about, well, you've seen the thumbnail, I'm sure, or you've read the title. It's about Blender and Natron. Natron is a very good open source compositor, and when it first came out it was okay, whereas now it's actually really started to settle down on its feet. It's very similar to Nuke in the way it works. It's all node based. And it's not difficult to learn. It's even easy to learn if you've used Nuke, obviously, because it uses all the same shortcuts. But we're going to try and give you a brief intro into it using something that I've been working on for a new title logo block. And I did a little bit of animation, did some shading and stuff. And I ended up with, well, let's load it up now. With, pardon me, this logo animation here. You can't see anything going on there. Let me just go to animate. There we go. And if I push this up, I just press play. So it comes up, spins, and lit underneath, and lit at the top, and ooh, it's through a hole. I still may do an alteration there. I do wonder about making the hole vanish. So like scale it away until it's gone. But for the time being, we've got this here that comes up, and then the so maybe there's going to be a font change. Well, there will be a font change at some point to what's happening with the name. So we'll have one that spins up, dub, 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 dub. And then for an outro we'll have one that goes dub, 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 and goes down, and we can do that whole thing with one animation because we're going to do it all in Natron. Now what we are going to do, because we're not going to spend a lot of time in Blender, I just want to go through a few things that have been kind of like set up during the process of doing this. And one of those, let's just move this over here. There we go. By the way, in the new version of Blender, the most recent one, 3.4, is it 3.4? Do you know, I'm questioning my own self now. 3.4.1, there we go. There is an alteration to the mix RGB. It's now just called mix, and you can use it to mix color or numbers or vectors or all sorts. And then you can change obviously with the mix to all the other things that we had before, which were color, overlay, blah blah. But it's taken basically two nodes and combined them into one. So I tried opening this scene in an earlier version. These did not exist. Kind of forces you to go onto the next one, but it doesn't cost anything, so why aren't you? But it's nice, you know. I got some nice simple shading on there, and I've got a little group node up here, which no, not that one. That's the Fresnel one. I've got a group node somewhere in here. I thought I did. There it is. Edges. There you go. So we can go into this. And basically what that is, it's I've used both the inside and the outside of occlusion, and I've clamped them together, and I use them to get kind of like all the edges together, multiplied them together, and we've got like sort of like white edges and black, and then we're using that to kind of like dirty up the edges on the shader. Nice and simple. But there you go. That was tabbing in and out of that. So that's all there, and that's all rendered actually, because we don't need to render that at all. But what I did do, which is quite important to the rendering stage, is I set up light groups. So if I pick in here, I've got just a collection called light. So I pick that light there, and let's go into the box here. We've got a light group that's called left light. The top one's got one called top. The underlight has got one called bottom, and the area backlight is in rim, because it's like a rim light for the whole thing. And that means that when we have one of these frames that is rendered, I will just very quickly, if I just drop this down, so I go 1, 2, 8 and turn on the denoise. If I press 12 here, just to give you an idea of what I mean, here is our sort of the logo shape just coming out of the ground, and this means that when we render this, so if I stop this now, it's about there, it's probably about right. If we look here in our settings, we've got combined top, so that gives us just the top light, the combined bottom, which gives us that underlight, combined left, which gives us a kind of side, slightly bluish fill. And then we've got combined rim, which gives us the rim light. Put all those together, and you get our combined output. So that's what we have rendered in our images, so that we can use them in our compositing to actually relight that animation on the fly. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about relighting pre-recorded animation, pre-rendered animation, sorry, and making it look even better using the compositing software. So I'm just going to minimize a few things. Let's minimize you, because I don't want you to be visible. I'm going to get rid of you, and I'm going to bring in Natron. And when you open Natron, this basically is what you see. That's it. Just this little beauty here. And in this window, we have, if I can use, I use Control, and I press down with the, I'm using a tablet, so I'm using the left and the mouse button, left and middle mouse button together pretty much. I can zoom in nice and cleanly. If I just use the left button and the right button at the same time, it's a little bit of a sort of like jump rather than the smoothness you get with your finger on Control, but you get that kind of like zoom in and zoom out, which is kind of standard. If you hold just the middle mouse button, you can move that left and right, and if you press the right mouse button, or in my case the top of the rocker on the tablet pen, you can get to all of this stuff. Now I'm not going to go through all of these, because that's not what we're here to do. We're just going to talk about some basic A over B pretty much, but it's just the process you need to do to get that, so you can work with lighting. So what I have done, and first of all, is this is opened standard. I've basically reset all the defaults, and you'll see that we've got the frame rate is set to 24. If you look over here, this, when you press S, it brings up the properties window. As I said, it's very much like Nuke, same thing. And you'll see here I have got everything set up. It's automatically set it up to OpenColor IO configs. And it's basically got the Blender ones in there as a default, which I think is really, really good, especially if you're using open source software all the time. The current project format, you can change this if you want to. You can build in a new format, so you can create your own. And then also you've got the first and last frames, and you've got the frame rate. Now this is obviously done for film as far as it's concerned, so the frame rate is 24. We don't want it to be 24, we want it to be 25 because we're in the UK. So type 25 and we're done. And the GPU rendering, well, we just leave that to enabled because we want this to render nice and quickly with the graphics processor. I've only got a 1070 Ti in my computer. This will be changing hopefully this year. I need to upgrade, but it's still not bad. I may be doing some speed ups a little bit with this, but it's still pretty good. But to try and make things a little bit easier, if we go to preferences, if we go down here and we go to caching, I've already increased the values here. What we've got here that we're not going to flag here is aggressive caching. Basically that caches every single node, which is fine. You know, you can set it to do that. You know, it doesn't necessarily need to be that excessive. Only if you want every single thing to be cached, despite whether you're looking at it or not. So we've got the maximum amount of RAM memory used for caching. I've upped it to 50% of the total RAM. System RAM to keep free, 20%. Maximum playback disk cache size is set to 30 gig. And the maximum disk cache node disk usage is also 30 gig. And this is the disk cache path is set to my secondary drive. So that basically means that it doesn't cache on my main drive. Even though the main drive on mine is a flash drive, I prefer to cache it onto the secondary drive. So that's all we need to really do there. GPU rendering, you see, it just points at your computer. You can see the 1070 Ti. I'm going to go save. And we don't need to go into color management because pretty much it's already running OpenColor IO. So what I'm going to do here right now is I'm going to read in a file. So let's press R on here, and I'm going to pick logo spin exr 1 to 76, and I can't see it in my window. By the way, you'll see this is set to 40%. That's on fit basically. It's 40%, 10%, 25%, 100%. No, just press F to fit it to the screen. We're going to very quickly go through these. This one here tells you. In fact, let me just load this in first. If I press 1, it connects the viewer to our read node, and then we can see all the information here in our properties panel over to the right. So it has the actual path, has the first name and the last name. You have actions to decide what happens to it after you've loaded it, exactly the same as Nuke. So if after hold you want it to go to black, after the end frame you want it to go to black, it will go to frame 76, and then after that it'll just be gone. So if I change that to hold and push past here, you see it's there. So I can cache this, but you'll notice that at the moment what we're seeing is the ambient occlusion pass, which is lovely, you know, Can't deny that an ambient occlusion pass is one of the nicest things out there. It really always looks pretty. This is caching through these at the minute now. But is it necessarily what we want to see? No. And that's when you can look at your decoder options, particularly if you're using multi-layered EXRs, which we are, which, frankly, if you're not rendering things as multi-layered EXRs, you might as well not bother. Don't render them as PNGs. PNGs are great. To be honest with you, if you're rendering a single image and you're going to do nothing with it, PNGs are great. You want to get to internal data in the image, you've got to store the image somewhere, and multi-layered EXRs are the place. I will show you what I mean in a second with that. There's a little thing that's in Natron, which is also in standard Nuke. It's called a layer contact sheet. Now, this is coming up, and that's the animation, but you'll also notice it's playing the ambient occlusion. If we look over here in the decoder options, the output layer is set to the first one alphabetically built into the image itself, which is why it always displays the ambient occlusion. So we go combined RGB. That changes that immediately to that. So if we look here now, go back up to the viewer itself, just as a quick understander. Color RGB. You can use this to look at every single element layer that you have. It doesn't mean you can use it, it's just to see it. It's a viewer. You can just look at all the things that's in there, everything you want. The noisy image from the noise, the backward motion, the color RGBA, which essentially is the same as the combined RGB. The color RGBA is always the thing that's being displayed on the output layer. So if I change this to the ambient, let's change that to, let's change it actually to the rim. If I then change this to the color RGB, that is now displays the the rim, which is on the output layer. So let's change that to AO, and that changes to AO, and so on. So let's change that back to combined, and let's put this just on to color RGB is what we want. Color RGBA. There you go. That's it. Standard thing. And then we've got all the separate parts of every single layer as well. So we can make the we can view red for the alpha. So press A in here now, and it shows you the alpha. So the alpha is, it's just picking from all those elements there. It's not what it should be. It should be color A. So we'll leave that there. So the alpha, as you can see, is 100% full. So from here, let's just take this back and just press A again to get rid of that and change that to RGB. So there you go. So all these things, they all have different uses. Obviously, you can lock that. That locks the scale. This allows you to just render a region. You'll notice this stretching. Whoa, love it. Big until you let go. That means it's only caching a small area if you're working on something close. And then this, that means it renders the entire image. Even when you just have this little area thing on, it'll just render the entire image. This one here is for the quality setting. So we can reduce the amount of pixels which are basically being affected, so we can see things run a little bit quicker. For this purpose, we're going to leave it on 2. And we're going to leave that down because we're looking at 40% of the image. This forces you to render an image again. So if you come over here and say, there's the image rendered, render it again, it goes to the motions. You'll see that the read node was changing to a yellow background. That means basically it's being processed. So the more things we add between here and here, obviously the slower it'll be, but the more we will be processing stuff. So what I want to do now is I want to start to isolate from this layer the lighting passes. Now what I need to do, and this is where, if you've never used a node editor before, this is where you really start to realize the power of EXRs. What we need to do is we need to get access to each one of those light layers, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically subtract them from this image. So if I bring this up here to about 50, where's that? Yeah, yes, let's leave it there. No, let's put it on 60. Why not? It's a nice round number. And I need to basically shuffle the layer which has got our information for one of our lights, say the rim light, this lovely white bit here, out into this shuffle node. Once I've shuffled it into that node, we can then use it inside of in here as a compositing thing. So I need to get to a shuffle node. So I'm going to press tab, and you'll see the most recent stuff that I've used is all at the top. But if it wasn't, and I just went shuff, you'll see shuffle mode there. So I'll then click on that, and I'll get a shuffle node. Now you can see here, what we have here is, and this is where I tend to get this wrong, so B goes into shuffle, like that, so that's our background image. And what we want to do is we want to change what comes out from this in here. So all the information, every part of the image has been ready into the shuffle, and you can see here everything's there. So I go to here where it says RGB color A, and everything we've got on our thing pops up. So I'm going to go here to the B viewer layer combined rim R. I'm going to click on that, and it populates the G and the B. So it picks the red and it puts in the G and the B. Yeah, because you pick the R, it looks for them and puts them in. It's clever. And then the alpha, well, you know, you can just leave it as on. You might as well. Or you can set it to 0, which is off, which means there is no alpha. So, you know, if I just press it, there you go. If I press A in here, there you go. In that window, there is no alpha. If I change this to 1, 100% alpha everywhere. So let's just pop that there. There we go. I'll go back to color. And now I have something which I can put over the top of this. So I've got this here, I can see it, but what I want to do is I want to actually subtract it from our image. So if I go here and press 1 here, we're now looking at just that view. Now, how do you go about taking this, which by the way, let's rename it and just call it rim in the node. There we go. So now I can see that that is my rim. And I'm going to change the color of it up here. So let's say that paler color. Don't have to. As long as you keep the word shuffle in there, you'll see what it is, because if you start really renaming things too much, you start to lose them in the comp. Because if you've got a lot of nodes that are in that comp, you will start to lose what is what. So it's a good idea to at least keep the name in. So let's just have this. And I'm going to create a merge node, which essentially is an A over B basic merging thing. So I press that and I put B, which is background. And let's connect that to there. So now that's looking at that. I'm going to click this. I'm going to connect it to that. Now that's actually now layering our rim, you can see here, over the top, because it's merged over, you can see it here, of our background image. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to press Control, by the way, and just lift this up. So that's now a little knuckle on it. Just makes it a little bit tidier. I'm going to change this at the moment, in here in this mix. It's got an over operation. I'm going to change this very quickly to plus, because plus basically is an additive thing. So if I click this and press 1, you can see there it is. If I press the merge, you can see I've laid it back over the top, so it's adding more to it, which is great. I mean, if you wanted to, you could use that rim, blur it, and you'd have kind of like a glow. It's not like a proper glow, but it kind of it can work as a glow. You can use it multiple times and increase its size and whatnot. But what I want to do is I want to actually remove it from our image. So rather than putting it over our image, I want to remove it from. And that's the thing here. You're not subtracting. There is actually a subtract, but it's not in here. You can't see it because it doesn't actually have the word subtract. What you have to do here is think of it more in terms of you're taking it from. Right? So you change that to from, and immediately that rim light has gone. From basically acts like a subtraction. So there's that with the rim, and there it is now without the rim. It's a little bit noisy, but that's because there's slight noise in the image. So if I had to show you that, you can see it looks like there's none, and then in here it looks like there's some, but there's none here, and you can look, there you go, there's a little bit of noise in there, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about that too much. If you do worry about that, you'll need a higher sampling rate, or probably denoise, or if you want to, where you've got this image here, you can change the main output to the noisy image. And what happens now, the noisy image, if you see that, and then you put that on, and now it's cleaner because the noisy image, the denoise, that's basically been bypassed. So we have the image before it does the final denoise, and that basically is a much cleaner than actually using the straightforward. So that's the noisy image is the one that you do just before the final. It's a nice and clean one just before the final denoise, so it stores it in the image still, so you can still use it. So that's our rim that we've removed. So what I can do with this is, if you watch this, I can pull this back in the node, and so I'm adding it back in via animation, and that's great. That's really good. Essentially, I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to move this down here like this. So I'm going to leave that as a subtraction. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a Control C and Control V, click and do that away. Stick that into there. Let's do this and just bring another knuckle out to here. And if I can just squeeze this back a little bit, move this up. I'm going to move this down here, and I'm going to add this back over the top. And the reason for this is because what I will do eventually is I will put all of the lights in here at this point and remove them entirely. But I just want to show you what I mean by what I can actually do. So what I can do here is I've got another version of this main image gone off and put in here, so we'll call it shuffle. Let's get rid of that and pull that shuffle to, and then the node we'll call this rim replace. And what I'll do is I'll select that merge node and I'll press M, which creates us with a new merge node and puts that in as A. Well, you don't want that to that. That's what's going to be A. A is over the top, B is underneath. So that we want underneath, and where that says over, we will now change this to plus. There you go. So if we look at just this one, it's taken out. I'll just move this over here. So I'm pressing 1, by the way, it's connecting this to the viewer. So say, right, okay, there that is, and then I click on this and it's back in. So what that means now is with this layer, what I can do is I can either wind it out, take it out, and what I can do is I can do other things to it here. So I'm going to just press C, and that puts a color correction in between these two. So I can now change the color of this before it reaches that merge. We're still looking at the merge because that's connected up. But if I double click on the color correct, it comes up here in the properties window. By the way, this little one up here, as a default, is set to 10. I think it's not a good idea. It's the same in Nuke. And basically what it means is that if I say put 2 things in here, if I have that merge, the merge comes first, but the last thing I picked is directly underneath. That I can live with. That's quite useful because you can control both things in here at the same time. Any more than that, it gets unwieldy. So if I was you, I would stick it to 1 and then occasionally stick it to 2. So that's 1. So I'm in there, model merge, double click on the color correct, I'm back in there. So I'm going to use the gain and I'm going to use the color of this color wheel and click on it. I'm going to use it to change the color of my rim light. Can you see that? It's just changing color. So we've got an orange light underneath, and I quite like the idea of a bluer light than the one we've got. If I just press D on this, it's like turns it on and off. So I think I quite like that. Maybe a little bit paler, a little bit whiter. There we go. And then what I can do is also I can just cycle through until I go, ooh, the opposite of orange is very much that blue, but that green looks kind of tasty. I could say that. I'd sound like a fool. So I'm going to put that back to the blue, and I'm going to go back here to here, and I'm going to say, right, at this frame 60, that's good. I like that. I like the heat of that and everything. So let's right click on the word mix and set a key. So what I can do now is I can say, right, let's start the rim light at 20, and you watch here, if I just pull this back, it's deleting that rim light. Okay, but it adds a keyframe in here. So now if we look at the curve editor, you'll see here at this frame it's going up and up and up until it reaches frame 60, and that's at its absolute top. Now I want to just flatten this off a bit, so I've got a choice here. I can right click on it and go interpolation and pick horizontal interpolation. Yep. Or I can press L for linear and then press H for horizontal, which basically is like a basic curve, and do the same on that one there. So I've got a nice ease in out of that. So if I'm just going to press play here, and I'm going to let this cycle through, watch it go. So, you know, this is the power of Natron, the power of compositing. We can do this sort of thing. So that's like, ooh, yeah. Now that's gone to 75 frames, but I'm going to press S right now and bring up the project. I'm going to set that to 125. So it's longer. So what happens is it just gets to 75 and then it goes, and it's a frame hold. So I can just keep on going, can't I? Yeah. And that's what it does. It just keeps on going. So it'll leave that frame there visible. So I could do other things on the end of this, like bring up the company name. Blimey, I wish. Bring up the name GemVFX. So, you know, just let it all cache through. So very quickly, let's just do this again. I'm going to do this one more time up here. So let me do this. I'm going to move that a little bit to there. I'm going to go Control C, drop it anywhere here. So I'm not selecting anything. Control V. I'm going to push that B into there like this. And so that was the rim. So let's click on this and let's change this one from the rim. Oh dear, what's happened there? Let's take it to the left-hand light. So let's look at that. There you go. So that's the left-hand light. So that's kind of in there as well. And let's put another one of these merges in. And again, it's connected it the wrong way around. There we go. Let's look at this, and that should be from to take it out. So if I look at this one, there you see the light is got the left-hand light in, and now it's been taken out. And then what I can do then is I can do the same thing I've got here pretty much, which is if I move this over here, so we're putting it back in. I can then do a Control C, click anywhere, Control V, and then push this back up to that knuckle. It's like a little bend in the road. And I can then put that, if I click that and press M, it's not done what I wanted. And go away. So let's pick this one and go M, so that says merge that, and then put it over that. And that we will change then to a plus. So with that rim replace there, plus back over the top, if we just look at this one here, we can see now we're getting, that was our rim that we replaced in the first place. This is not the rim, doesn't need to be the rim. What we want this to be is to be the left light that we took out. So as I said, you know, here's your main one. Then you take, we've taken out the rim light, and then let's change that name of that one from rim to left. And then we'll change the name of this one down here to left. Click on node, and that's rim replace. We'll put it left replace. There we go. And so if I just zoom in here, let's just zoom in. There we go. So you can see things a little bit better. So this is where we put the rim light back in, and with a color correct that has just a nice little bit of an animation on the mix. And then we have this left replace down here, and then put that back over the top. So you can see there it is nicely in there. And we can just keep on doing this with all of the lighting. That is all of our stuff removed, nice and simply. And what I'm going to do is going to really tidy this sort of stuff up, because this is one of the loveliest things about doing anything like this, is you can really, really make it clean and tidy. I know a lot of people can get very messy in these, and that's fine. But if you have something like this, you can go, right, okay, this is all my removed stuff. So I have pressed tab. If I type in back and go backdrop, I can click on that, and everything there is now in a backdrop, which if I move, moves all of that. And we can rename this, go over here, this backdrop, click on it, and the label, and we put remove lights. Okay, and there you can see it there. And if you want to, you can say, right, let's change it from Droid Sans, let's make it something different. You know, you've got all the access to all the fonts you want, so you could say impact, so there, remove lights, and let's make it bigger, like this, and then we can go, right, let's, just for the sake of argument, let's make this a bit wider, move these down, all of this. There we go. And we can do this. There we go. So let's move it up a tiny bit. There you go. So that's nice and organized, don't you think? And then here we'll call these ones replace lights. That's the thing. So what we can do. So this is all the shuffles and the color corrects and the grades and whatnot. So we've got this all nice controllable kind of stuff, and it's, you know, it means that we can just pull things out and push things back in. And I am going to also do a few little spot effects at the top of this because I can, and therefore I will. But if we just pop back to here for the time being, this is the whole complete thing now. Back, it's all there. There it is without the underlight. There it is with the underlight. There's with the underlight and the top light. So we go to 75. We can say, right, okay, where do I want to control these lights a bit? Well, the underlight, I really want to keep that really because that looks quite nice. So what I might actually do is boost it a bit. Let's boost it a little bit. So let's press G to grade the pass, the layer information. Let's have a look. And I'm going to push the gain up a little bit. So it's a little bit hotter at the beginning. And in fact, what I will do is, let's say it's going to be hotter until 40, 50 maybe. Hotter until 50. So let's set a key there, and then we'll go to 75, and then we'll reset the gain to 1. Yeah, so it's just not too hot now. So if we go to the bottom and have a little look, here it should be quite bright. There you go, you can see it's quite bright. And then there it's all nice and gold again. And I think I'm gonna drop down the top one as well. So that top lightness comes on about 50 as well, but I'm not gonna get rid of it completely. So what I'm gonna do is I'll put a color correct on it, like this. And I'll go to the gain and I'll bring it down just, because we can take it almost all the way out, but I'll just take it just out about there. That's good. And then let's set a key, and then we'll go to 75, and we'll set that gain back up to 1. So we have this nice thing. What I'm going to do on this one as well, by the way, is I'm going to just press F to fit everything in there. I'm going to select that. I'm going to say horizontal and that horizontal. And then I think I'm just going to move that key. I've got my finger on shift, so I can't move up and down. Let's move that back a little bit just to there. So it's just nicely moving up and down a bit. There we go. So it's not really very strong there. In fact, it's barely there at all. But it comes up as our little icon thing does. So there you go. That's pretty good. That's how I'm happy with that. I'm just going to very quickly save this because I haven't saved this at all. Let's call it logo relight 2. And then let's try and let's do a RAM preview of this whole thing and see a RAM preview. I suppose it is a RAM preview, isn't it? It's loading it all into RAM. So we can see a little bit of something going on there. We can't see everything, but that's okay. And it's going to go through the whole thing and just try and generate a little playback. So there you go. That's all of that happening and things turning on and stuff all at the same time. In fact, it's difficult. Some of the stuff doesn't quite actually come across that well, does it? It's not quite. It would be nice if it was a bit darker at the beginning, maybe. I think if we animated, is it this one? Let's just have a quick look. So look, it's not the rim, it is the rim. So I did a color correct on that one. So I'm just going to basically take that rim. Let's just press 1 there again, put that here. And let's take this up and bring this up. And I'm going to put a grade underneath. And I'm going to bring down the gain. Yeah, like that. There we go. And let's have that down. Let's have it at 34. Why not? Let's set a key, and then at 75, let's reset it to 1. Right, let's take it higher than 1. Let's take it to 1. Yeah, let's do that. That's good. And hopefully this should take less time because a lot of it's already been cached. So we can see. So there you go. Well, it comes up, a little bit of a flash of the light. Nice and hot underneath. Oof, a little bit of boom. You know, that's not so bad. I've got to say, I'm actually quite happy with that. But we have got this extra period of frames when it stops. So what I'm going to do very quickly now is I'm going to add something onto the top of this that will only appear once we reach a certain point, and it's going to be some text. So let's do this now. Let's create some text. So if we press space, sorry, not space, we press, I'll come over here, we press tab, we can go text, and we can go here and text, that's a draw node, And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on it and press 1 so we can see that is where the text is. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on here. It's I mean, you can, if I just do this, you can see we've got skewing, and we've also got skewing up and down. So we can set those back to 0. Obviously, we've got scale and we've got rotate, so we can also rotate it around. We've got obviously the center where it is. So if I say this, I can move this over here, and I can go a reset, and that'll put it back to the center. It's a high dots per inch, so it means that it basically improves. It's almost like another form of extra level of anti-aliasing on top of it. We can auto size it. We can center interact, which is actually better. Sorry, auto size it, and we can center interact. So automatically, in my opinion, center interact should be the default. Auto sizing kind of starts in the corner, which means you can, if I increase the style, if I increase it, it basically comes always way up from that bottom left hand corner. But if we turn off that, leave the transform on, so a center interact, and then now what you can do whenever you do anything, it kind of goes from the center, which is kind of what you want. Now it is limited, at least it appears to be limited. I've yet to find a way to do more actual changes like internal kerning. So I don't think you can. So you can't actually adjust the distance between two letters and stuff. But what we can do, we can get to all of our fonts, for example. But it's a nice and clean. So because it's done this way, it means it's just a lot nicer than having to go through a huge list. So like roughly what you want. So the default really is Arial, but I quite like to. Obviously, I don't want to have that as my actual text. I've been using Univia Pro for a long time, but I've been trying to find better options. I'm just going to change this to band shift because I quite like band shift or barn shift. And I'm going to type in GEN, and then I'm going to click here so we can see that. And now I'm going to do this, and there is a reason why I'm doing this. I'm going to duplicate this, Control C, Control V, and then I'm going to press a merge, and I'm going to connect that to the back and do that. So I've got two pieces of separate text that I want to be underneath each other accurately. If I was to type VFX underneath this, it doesn't put it in the middle. It kind of it doesn't quite work properly. It should, but the placements of the text don't look right. I'll show you what I mean. If I type in GEN and then return and press VFX and then click off that, and let's just put this on here. If you can see what happens if I just click the text and let's pick that merge. There you go. You can see the VFX isn't under the GEN. So what the best thing to do is to get rid of that. And even when you go horizontal line to the center and vertical line to the center, if I still do it, it still looks off because it is, which is just a bit of a shame. It doesn't want to play ball. So what I'm going to do is I've got that one which is GEN, this one which is also GEN, which we're going to change that to VFX like this. Let's have a look at the two together, and let's change that horizontal to center and to center. And all of this is also center interact, so it's just a matter of saying, right, okay, in that case, let's move this one down. Okay. And now it's in the right spot. So let's say, right, okay, I've got this and I've got this, and I'm going to merge this over the top of our text. I want to leave, but I want these to be kind of like that in its own self. It's kind of like a unit. You see what I mean? So that's kind of like its own little block. So I'm going to merge over the top of that. So let's select this. Let's go M, so it becomes the over the top of whatever's there. Pop that into there, and now what we see is it's sitting over the top like that. We can also see that it's not looking right because the text isn't big enough. So let's go here and let's increase the scale. We've got that. That's one. Let's reduce the letter spacing a little bit. So it's -13. I quite like that, and set that to 125. And then here we can go. The letter spacing here is to -13, and that to 125. Whoops, 125, not 1125. And let's move this down because obviously we need to have this in the right spot. That's underneath, and now we can see that it's all too low. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to set a transform on that, and we are going to move this. We're going to move this up. Okay, so let's set that to 1. Let's just move it there, and we'll push this back up. So there we have the Gen VFX. Lovely. And now I'm going to add a drop shadow under this. Now I'm going to use all of this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume basically I need this to be behind, the shadow to be behind. So whatever I put in the next layer here in the next part of the node editor, that will be on top. So I'm going to basically create a merge, make that the background, make that the foreground, like that. So I've basically created already that one behind. But then what I'm going to do here is I want this to be offset so it's underneath it and also a little bit to the right, so it looks like a drop shadow. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add another transform. So I'm going to press T for transform. I'm going to stick it onto here. And why am I doing that? If I press Control and drag this in, there you go, you can see it picks it up. Okay. Why am I doing that? Well, here's the reason why. If I just delete this, I select that and I press T for transform, it goes into both of them. I don't want it to go in both of them, I just want to go into the back one. So I click anywhere that isn't on a node and press T, and then with my finger on control I drag this down between two nodes until it says, you want that, and you go, okay, so you let go and then drop it in. So what I'm also going to do right now is I'm going to do a color correct and do the same thing and drop it between these two. And put control, drag down until it starts to go, activate it and just let go. There you go, so that's now in there. And let's get the gain, and just to make this a bit more obvious, go to the color wheel and let's make it red. So if you look at that with 1, you can see there you go, that's red. Go back here. And now with this transform, I'm going to move this a little bit that way. Let's just turn this off. Set that back to hyper quality. And let's zoom up to 100% so we can see just this bit. -4, and then set that to 4 as well. So it's equidistant. And then let's go to this color. And where at the moment it's red in the gain, we're going to make it black. Okay, so you can see now it's just gone black. It's very hard to see. Let's just set this to fit. And then now what I want to do is I want to animate these coming on. I'm also going to go back to this bit of text here. I'm just going to basically adjust this so it goes back to be a little bit wider. There we go. That looks quite nice. And we'll go back to 75. And let's add, let's go back to this merge, because this basically is very handily has a mix in it so we can turn things off. So you can go, right, let's turn that off there. That's all fine and dandy. But unfortunately, it's only turning off the VFX part of the text. So let's bring all this down a bit just to make life a little bit easier. Pop this down a bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another merge underneath, like this. And this way I can take out everything. See? So if I can now bring this up, essentially I'm using the alpha of the merge node underneath it to set the transparency. So I'm going to go back down to 0 here at frame 75. Let's set a key, and then let's move it up to about 95, and let's set a key there. All that's working as it should. And there you have it. Look at that. Spinning up, and then it's like, you know, spinning up. Ooh, out of the ground. Nice lighting. Boom. All that lovely bass. Bass. And there you go. All that spinning around and coming up. So there you go. There it is. Up and spinning and lovely. So we can check it and go, yes, I'm happy with that. After the world of slow caching. And then what we can do is say, right, okay, well, that's all that done. Now I just need to do some outputting. So I'm going to make a new backdrop here. And I'm going to change the color of this one. I'm going to change it to a nice dark red. Okay, like this. And I can set up in here whatever I want my outputs to be. So let's just say I'm going to write this out. So let's press a W to get a write node. I'm going to go up one into the Natron comp, and I'm going to go to renders. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it comps. 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 So actually the rendered out versions. Comps. I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call it exrs. Okay. Like this. So exrs.exr. Okay. So that's not a good name for it. So we'll call this, just up here, logos.exr. Okay, so that's fine. I've got one in there, but then what I don't necessarily want to always export as exrs. So I'm going to do a write node again, and this time in the same folder. And I'm going to call this one, logo.mov, like that. And literally, you'll notice that if I click on the XRs, this is set up because you put in the XR, it goes, oh, we want an EXR. No problem. Well, that's what it's going to be. It'll just be image files. So let's, the encoder options got scanline based. Yeah, that's good. Let's leave that. And the bit depth auto. Yeah, let's leave that. Orientation normal, compression default. Well, actually, with the XRs, you've got lots of options there. So I'm going to put it on DWAB, which actually, DWAB, DWAB is actually DWAB. Just love the word. So, and then if you double click on the logo one, you can see a QuickTime movie. Apple ProRes 4444, which is exactly what we want. Frames per second, no, we want 25. Pixel encoding, leave all that as it is, that's fine. It's still at open color IO on the output, but that's all right. Again, not too bothered about that. And I'm going to lift this up to here, and I'm going to press Control, and you'll see we've got all these lovely knuckles again. I'm going to drop that onto there, and I'll do this and press and knuckle that out, and then I'm going to connect that to there as well. And then all of this, let's just put this down into here, so I can now move all of this to the bottom, and that I'm going to disable for the time being. And this mob one here, I'm going to leave on. I'm going to go File Save, just to be absolutely sure, and I'm going to go Render, and I'm going to go Render Selected Writer. You can actually enable render if I just turn that one off. I've got this one selected. I'm going to go Render Selected Writers with F7, or we can press F5, which basically renders all of the writers. So I'm just going to do Write Logo. That's just that one. Okay, so I can either press here, or I can go Render Selected Writer. So let's do that. I'll just press that, and there you go. Now, and that is now queued and ready to go. It says about 10 minutes to do it, so that's now running. And this is the finished piece here. It's all done, all comped, all rendered, and it is the MOV file that's playing back. It's not the final piece. I've still got to carry on and do some bit of extra work to it, and then it will become the new titles at some point. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this has been a bit longer than it should have been, and trust me, it's been hell for me editing it, because I've forgotten how absolute waffly I am. But I'm terrible. I'm trying my best to stop doing it. I know it irritates some people, but hopefully through the waffle you will have learned a little bit about Natron and how you can render stuff in Blender, which you can then adapt and edit and relight and so on inside of Natron. It is something which I'm going to pursue and do more with. It is a little bit clunky at times maybe, but do you know what? I really, really like it. Anyway, I hope this has been some good stuff for you. And listen, go have a wonderful year. I'll see you in the next one. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please. And I'll speak to you all soon. Take care, guys. Bye.